Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first ever virtual Bright Focus Alzheimer's Disease Fast Track. We're really excited this year with our awesome interactive platform and our speaker lineup. So I'm about to go ahead and give you tips on writing successful grant applications and some instructions on how to generate your mock grant proposal for the Fast Track. So where can we get grants? We can get grants generally through federal agencies such as the NIH. They have a bunch of different series of grants, so research grants, career development awards, research and training fellowships, program and project center grants. And then there are also foundation grants, so 501c3s that are religious, charitable, or educational organizations. And these can be private foundations or more public charities, such as Bright Focus. And so a little bit about Bright Focus. We fund exceptional scientific research worldwide to defeat Alzheimer's disease, macular degeneration, and glaucoma. And we provide expert information on these heartbreaking diseases. As you can see, our ongoing scientific global portfolio consists of over 220 projects in 25 different countries. Our current portfolio has about 50% basic research grants, 20% clinical research grants, and 30% translational research grants. So for our core program for the Alzheimer's Disease Research Program, we have a standard award program, which is $300,000 for 3 years, and a postdoctoral fellowship award program, which is $200,000 for 2 years. Last year in FY21, we received a record number of applications at 390, and we funded a record number of projects at 46. And that resulted in a record dollar amount of around $11.6 million. Our FY21 portfolio consisted of 80% early career investigators, 55% of whom were female, 44% were postdoctoral fellows, and 30% were international awards. And so as you prepare to submit your grant to Bright Focus or any other funding agency, there are 3 main steps. We need to read. We need to read first the call for proposals and make sure you're eligible and that your idea is a good fit for the funding agency that will be supporting you. You need to read the grant application instructions all the way through before you even start writing. This way, you can contact the program officer, meet with your Office of Sponsored Research, become familiar with your institute's procedures and requirements, and make sure you have enough time for signatures, unforeseen circumstances, technology issues, etc. And then finally, get down to writing. So develop an innovative idea with a clear hypothesis, solicit feedback from your mentors and colleagues, and provide adequate preliminary data. So at Bright Focus, we have review criteria that's pretty similar to NIH review criteria. So first, is your application or your idea significant or relevant? So does the project address an important problem or critical barrier that can lead to improved treatments, prevention strategies, and diagnoses for AD? Is it innovative? Will your proposal utilize novel theoretical concepts, approaches, or methodologies, instrumentation, or interventions? What about the investigators or the mentor in the case of a postdoctoral fellowship? Does the research team have a good track record for publications? Is the mentor well established? Do they have their own funding? And do they have a good track record of training their own students? Then finally, the approach. So does the overall strategy, methodology, and analyses accomplish the specific aims? The environment is also taken into consideration. Is there access to necessary equipment or core facilities, data sets if applicable? Are there training opportunities, seminars, workshops, etc. that can benefit postdocs? And then finally, the budget. Are salary caps adhered to, and is the budget reasonable to cover the proposed experiments? There are also additional criteria to keep in mind. So make sure that your application or your proposal accounts for sex differences, especially if there are known sex differences in that area of research that you plan on looking at. Make sure you include your power calculations, address timelines and pitfalls. It usually helps if you have a schematic for your timelines and your goals, protections for human subjects, vertebrate animals, and biohazardous materials. So for your mock grant proposal for Fast Track, we would like you to include some background and hypothetical preliminary data. We want you to have a succinct, clear hypothesis, specific aims. We'd like you to outline your approach. That would include your methods, your experimental design, and your statistic analyses. And then also touch on how your proposal is innovative and relevant to the mission of Bright Focus, and also touch on the budget, facilities, and environment. You'll see this is broken down into about 10 different areas that you can touch on, and we'll have about 10 students per group. So each of you can present one slide or however you decide to work it out amongst yourselves. You'll also see Dominic Paquet's very beautiful research art. So we love to collect research art to share images for educational purposes, but also on our website and to just showcase your work. So if you do ever apply to Bright Focus, please feel free to share your research art with us. We have a lot of fun with it. So finally, some grant writing tips. And these are provided from Dr. Cindy Lemire, who's a co-chair of the Fast Track. And she was kind enough to share these slides with me because they're a lot of fun. So keep the reviewer in mind. Follow all instructions to the T. So more often than not, applications are rejected because people don't adhere to the word count. Sometimes they just repackage their R01, and that's pretty obvious. Also, you can just propose an incremental advance rather than an innovative idea, and that's not necessarily something Bright Focus is interested in. Sometimes if specific aims aren't concise and they're too long and wordy, the reviewers are going to first and foremost look at your specific aims before they start reading the rest of the proposal. So you really want to make a good impact with your specific aims. Proposals that generally are not funded will lack a clear hypothesis, or sometimes if you're coming from another field or you're new in the field, you won't have a letter of support from an Alzheimer's disease expert, or sometimes there are missing collaborators or co-investigator letters of support. Use subheadings for easy navigation. Make sure your figure legends are readable and that there's not so much text that we need a magnifying glass to read it. And then explain why your project is worth money. Be realistic about your budget. Make sure that you're accounting for the time and the cost, but also for the quality of your work. Bring in experts where needed. Again, having support letters, especially if you're coming from outside the field and into Alzheimer's disease, is always very beneficial for your application. Also, make sure you ask seasoned colleagues for advice. They've been around and they know what's going on, and they're generally more than willing to help, especially young early career investigators on their grant proposals. Set goals and deadlines and make sure you give yourself enough time after you finalize your application to submit, again, to get all the proper institutional signatures. Especially now with delays due to COVID, we've had a lot of people that are asking for extensions because their institute will take, 5 working days to get signatures, and we just can't make exceptions for everybody. So we adhere strictly to our deadlines. Proofread, and proofread. I know it's hard when you're staring at something that's many, many pages and you feel like you've had it memorized and you're dreaming about it, but more often than not, we can find mistakes in almost every application. And be nice if you resubmit. Each application is judged on that pool of applicants in a given year. And so even if you resubmit and you address all the reviewers' critiques or concerns, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be funded in the next cycle. Each cycle is unique and each application is judged against the others. And finally, good luck. I hope that this presentation is helpful. I hope that your Fast Track mock grant proposal will be helpful on the next stages of your career in getting the proper research funding you need.